안녕하세요. 오늘 날씨 참 좋네요. 진짜 어디론가 훌쩍 떠나고 싶은 그런 날인데요.
네, 맞아요. 마음은 그런데 그래도 저희는 또 흥미로운 지식 탐험을 떠나봐야죠.
네, 맞습니다. 오늘은 얼마 전에 끝난 비트코인 서울 2025 컨퍼런스 그 열기를 다시 한번 좀 느껴보는 시간을 가지려고 해요. 특히 그 휴먼 라이트 파운데이션 HRF의 알렉스 리 발표가 인상 깊었거든요. 비트코인 자유를 열다. 금융과 인권의 사례, 이 세션 내용을 좀 집중적으로 파헤쳐 볼까 합니다.
아, 그거 정말 중요한 세션이었죠.
네. 혹시 컨퍼런스에 못 가셨거나 아니면 현장 내용을 다시 한번 복습하고 싶으신 분들 바로 당신을 위해 준비했습니다. 물론 저희가 그 발표 자료 미리 공유해드렸는데 그거 먼저 읽어보셨으면 오늘 이야기가 훨씬 더 재밌게 들으실 거예요.
네, 아무래도 배경 지식이 있으면 더 깊이 이해가 되죠.
자, 그럼 시작해볼까요? 보통 비트코인 하면 뭐 가격 오르내리는 거, 투자 이런 거 먼저 떠올리잖아요.
그렇죠. 대부분 그렇죠.
근데 알렉스 리는 좀 다른 얘기를 했어요. 프리덤 고업, 그러니까 비트코인이 어떻게 전 세계에서 좀 억압받는 사람들, 인권 운동가들한테 금융적인 자유를 주는지 그 얘기에 집중했죠. HRF에서 비트코인 개발 지원을 이끄는 분 답더라고요.
네, 맞아요. 발표의 핵심은 단순히 정부가 돈을 막 찍어내서 가치가 떨어지는 그런 인플레이션 문제만은 아니었어요. 더 근본적으로는 권위주의 정권 있잖아요. 이런 곳에서 기존 금융 시스템을 어떻게 통제하고 이걸로 반대 세력을 억압하는지 그걸 좀 고발하는 내용이었죠. 실제로 전 세계 인구 중에 57억 명 이상이 이런 체제 아래 산다는 통계도 나왔고요. 이런 나라들에서 인권 침해나 분쟁, 빈곤 이게 심각하다는 거 좀 충격적이더라고요.
57억 명이요? 와, 정말 많은 사람들이네요.
네. 알렉스 리가 한국 사례를 들면서 한국에서는 부패 같은 거 자유롭게 보도하고 시위도 할 수 있지만 이게 당연한 게 아닌 나라가 훨씬 많다는 걸 딱 지적했어요. 이런 상황에서 금융 시스템까지 통제당하면 저항은 더더욱 힘들어지겠죠?
바로 그 지점에서 이제 비트코인이 대안이 될 수 있다는 건데, 몇 가지 중요한 특징들이 있었죠.
네. 핵심 속성들이죠.
검열 저항성, 그러니까 어떤 중앙기관도 거래를 막거나 검열할 수 없다는 거.
그렇죠. 막을 수가 없죠.
그리고 압수 저항성, 정부가 개인 자산을 함부로 얼리거나 뺏기 어렵다는 거. 또 국경 없이 자유롭게 보내고 누구나 허가 없이 쓸 수 있다는 점. 이런 것들이요.
네, 맞습니다. 이런 특징들이 말로만 들으면 좀 추상적인데 실제 사례를 보면 확 와닿아요. 그 러시아의 알렉세이 나발니 사례가 정말 대표적이었어요. 푸틴 정권 비리를 막 폭로했잖아요.
네, 저도 기억나요.
그랬더니 나발니 본인뿐만 아니라 가족들 은행 계좌까지 싹 다 동결시켜버린 거예요.
아, 가족들까지요?
네, 심지어 그가 운영하던 반부패 재단 계좌는 이게 진짜 황당한데 마이너스 9,990억 루블. 이런 비현실적인 숫자가 찍혔다고 하더라고요.
마이너스 9,990억이요? 아니, 그게 가능한가요? 정말 영화 같은데요.
그러니까요. 완전 금융적으로 봉쇄해버린 거죠.
그런 상황에서 어떻게 활동을 계속할 수 있었던 거죠, 그럼? 혹시 비트코인?
정확합니다. 바로 비트코인 덕분이었어요. 기존 금융 시스템이 완전히 막혔는데도 비트코인으로는 전 세계에서 기부금을 받을 수 있었던 거죠. 정부가 은행 계좌는 막아도 이 분산된 네트워크 위에서 움직이는 비트코인 거래 자체는 막을 수가 없었던 거예요.
아,
네. 그래서 이 기부금으로 직원들 월급도 주고 계속 활동을 이어갈 수 있었던 거죠. 이게 바로 비트코인의 검열 저항성, 압수 저항성이 제대로 힘을 발휘한 순간이었어요.
와, 정말 대단하네요. 나이지리아 엔드사이즈 캠페인도 비슷했다고 들었어요.
네, 맞아요. 경찰 폭력에 반대하는 시위가 커지니까 정부가 또 관련자들 은행 계좌를 동결했는데
거기도 동결.
네. 근데 시위대가 비트코인으로 10만 달러 이상을 모금해서 의료 지원, 법률 지원 이런 데 썼다고 하더라고요. 그때 트위터 창업자 잭도시가 막 나서서 비트코인 기부 독려하기도 했고요.
아, 잭도시까지요? 그 파급력이 상당했겠네요.
그렇죠. 근데 미얀마 사례는 이건 더 좀 가슴 아팠어요.
미얀마요?
네. 군복 쿠데타 반대 단체에 우리 돈으로 한 4,000원, 단 3달러를 기부했다는 이유만으로 젊은이들한테 7년형을 선고했다는 거예요.
3달러에 7년형이요? 세상에.
네. 금융 통제가 진짜 얼마나 잔혹하게 쓰일 수 있는지를 보여주는 거죠. 이런 환경에서는 비트코인이 그냥 기술이 아니라 정말 말 그대로 생존이랑 저항을 위한 생명줄이 되는 셈이에요.
듣고 보니 정말 그렇네요. 반면에 알렉스 리가 비트코인이랑 정반대되는 기술에 대해서도 경고를 했다고요? CBDC 말씀이시죠?
네, 중앙은행 디지털 화폐 CBDC요. HRF에서 CBDC 트래커라는 걸 운영하면서 전 세계 개발 동향을 감시하고 있다고 하더라고요.
트래커까지 운영하면서요. 왜 그렇게 경계하는 건가요?
그게 중요한 지적인데요. 비트코인은 공급량이 딱 제한돼 있고 개인 간 거래, 프라이버시가 어느 정도는 보장되잖아요. 근데 CBDC는 이론적으로 정부가 원하면 무한정 찍어낼 수 있고 모든 거래 기록이 중앙 서버에 남으니까 완벽한 감시가 가능해진다는 우려가 큰 거죠.
아, 모든 거래가 다 기록된다.
네. 한국은행조차도 CBDC 시범 운영 결과를 발표하면서 프라이버시 보호보다는 규제 준수를 더 중요하게 고려했다고 밝혔어요. 뭐 지금 당장은 우리가 민주주의 국가에 사니까 괜찮을지 몰라도 나중에 정부 성격이 바뀌거나 하면 이 CBDC가 어떻게 악용될지는 정말 아무도 모른다는 거죠. 그게 경고의 핵심이에요.
무서운 이야기네요. 그래서 HRF가 그냥 비판만 하는 게 아니라 대안을 위해서 노력도 하고 있다는 거죠?
네, 맞아요. 비트코인 개발 펀드를 만들어서 금융 프라이버시나 자유를 위한 기술 개발하는 개발자, 교육자, 활동가들을 지원하고 있다고 하고요. 또 그 자유를 위한 플래시 드라이브 캠페인이라고 북한 같은 폐쇄 사회에 뭐 K-드라마나 위키피디아 같은 외부 정보를 담은 USB 보내는 활동 이런 것도 같이 하고 있다고 합니다.
그렇군요. 오늘 알렉스 리 발표 내용을 이렇게 쭉 훑어보니까 비트코인이 그냥 뭐 투기 자산 이걸 넘어서서 진짜 억압받는 환경에 있는 사람들한테는 실질적인 금융 도구가 될 수 있겠다. 이런 가능성이 좀 명확하게 보이는 것 같아요.
네, 저도 그 점이 가장 인상 깊었어요. 동시에 그 CBDC 사례처럼 기술 발전이 꼭 좋은 방향으로만 가는 건 아니고 오히려 새로운 형태의 통제나 감시를 만들 수도 있다는 점도 다시 한번 생각하게 됐고요. 기술 발전이랑 개인의 자유, 이 사이의 균형점을 어디서 찾아야 할까요? 참 어려운 문제죠. 여러분은 어떻게 생각하시나요?
있다는 거. 그리고 그 변화를 만들려는 사람들의 용기. 이게 정말 대단하다고 느꼈습니다.
저도 공감합니다. 금융 시스템이라는 게 어떻게 보면 권력을 유지하는 수단이 될 수도 있구나 하는 걸 느꼈고 또 거기에 맞서는 이런 기술적인 대안이 왜 중요한지 이걸 정말 절실하게 깨달았어요. 단순히 기술적인 걸 넘어서 우리 사회의 자유나 인권 같은 근본적인 가치를 다시 돌아보게 만드는 시간이었던 것 같습니다.
네. 오늘 저희와 함께한 이 시간이 여러분께도 좀 깊은 생각거리를 던져주었기를 바랍니다. 다음에도 더 흥미로운 주제로 다시 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're taking a deep dive today into a really thought-provoking session from Bitcoin Seoul 2025. For those of you who maybe couldn't join us there in Seoul, or if you were in the audience and just want to revisit some of those key insights, think of this as your express pass. We're focusing specifically on Alex Lee's presentation. He's from the Human Rights Foundation, and it really hammered home how Bitcoin isn't just about like the market price or investing. It's really becoming this critical, maybe even life-saving tool for human rights around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. What really resonated with me from that talk was how it shifted the whole conversation. You know, we so often get caught up in the financial headlines, the price going up or down. But this discussion moved way beyond that. It got into the very essence of global freedom, human dignity. It really is about freedom go up, as Alex Lee put it. So simple, but so powerful.
That's a great way to frame it. Freedom go up. Okay, so let's start where Alex Lee did. The core problem. This chilling reality of authoritarian regimes weaponizing their own financial systems against their people. What does that actually look like on the ground for the billions living under these conditions?
It's incredibly stark and deeply troubling, really. Today, something like 5.7 billion people live under authoritarian rule. That's a huge number. And the impact isn't just, theoretical. It's devastatingly practical. These regimes, they're directly responsible for, get this, 97% of global refugees and 79% of all conflicts worldwide.
Wow, 97%.
Yeah. And consider this, out of the 20 countries with the worst access to clean water, 18 are authoritarian. A horrifying 90% of the worst human trafficking efforts linked to these states. And 9 out of 10 of the world's poorest countries are authoritarian.
That's staggering.
It is. And then you contrast that with a place like, say, South Korea, a thriving democracy. Here, citizens can freely report corruption, they can lead massive street protests, they can express dissent, all without that immediate fear of financial reprisal, having your bank account frozen just for speaking out. The everyday difference in just fundamental freedom is undeniable.
It really paints a grim picture. control and suppression. So, okay, if traditional finance is so easily weaponized, how does Bitcoin fit in, this freedom money that dictators can't stop, as Lee called it? How does it offer a genuine alternative? What are its, unique properties that make it such a powerful shield for activists?
Right, it's not just a catchy slogan. It's really baked into Bitcoin's fundamental design. Its unique architecture gives it these core attributes that are just critical for preserving individual freedom. First, and maybe the most important in these contexts, is its censorship resistance.
Yeah.
Unlike a traditional bank, right, which can freeze your account with a simple click if you annoy the state. Governments just cannot stop you from using Bitcoin if you self-custody your funds. And what that means, basically, is you hold the private keys yourself. You directly control your money. No bank, no third-party exchange needed. It's that whole not your keys, not your coins idea.
So you're genuinely in control of it. You cut out the middleman completely. That makes perfect sense for someone facing, a financial blockade.
Exactly. And that leads straight to the second attribute, seizure resistance. Since you, and only you, hold those private keys, there's no central point where someone can just confiscate your funds. Your Bitcoin can't be seized like money in a bank account can. It's fundamentally different. Then there's its borderless nature.
Oh, right. Global reach.
Yeah, you can seamlessly send Bitcoin to anyone, anywhere in the world. It just crosses geographical and political lines. And imagine trying to send just $5 from here in Seoul to a friend in the US, and then they want to send it to Mexico, and then from Mexico to Venezuela. Through banks, it'd be incredibly cumbersome, expensive, fees everywhere, often just impossible for small amounts. With Bitcoin, it's direct, peer-to-peer, done in minutes.
That ease of global movement must be a huge advantage, especially when, timely aid is critical.
It absolutely is. Fourth, it's profoundly permissionless. Anyone can access it. You don't need to deal with complex bank bureaucracy, fill out tons of forms, prove your address, wait in line.
None of that hassle?
Nope. If you have a smartphone, basically you can download an app and get access to Bitcoin. Simple as that. Fifth, it offers significantly better privacy than traditional finance.
Okay, how so? Because the blockchain is public.
It is, but think about your bank or credit card. Every transaction is tracked and monitored by institutions, by governments. While the main Bitcoin blockchain is public, there are tools, second-layer solutions, like the Lightning Network is a big one. It allows for faster, cheaper, and much more private transactions that happen sort of off the main chain. These tools make your transactions much harder to trace back to you. It's not perfect anonymity, but it's a huge step up. And finally, it's programmable. It's software.
Meaning it can be updated.
Exactly. Developers can keep building on it, upgrading it, creating new tools and functions on top of the base layer. Think secure messaging, more robust, censorship-resistant payment channels. Crucially, making it faster and cheaper, which is key for global adoption, especially in, challenging environments.
That breakdown makes it incredibly clear why these features aren't just nice-to-haves. They're vital necessities for people under oppressive regimes. It turns this complex tech into, a survival tool. But okay, let's move from the theory, the attributes, to seeing them in action. Where has this stuff been really put to the test? Let's start with that really compelling case you mentioned from the presentation. Alexei Navalny and the Anti-Corruption Foundation in Russia.
Yeah, Navalny's story is, it's a chilling real-world example of financial weaponization. He was the leading opposition figure against Putin, right? Head of the Anti-Corruption Foundation, exposing systemic corruption, big stuff. And as a direct result of his activism, all his bank accounts were frozen. His personal ones, his wife's, his kids, even his elderly parents' accounts, everything shut down.
Wow. The whole family.
The whole family. And he famously woke up one morning, checked his bank account, and it showed this absurd negative balance, like negative 999 billion rubles. It sounds almost comical in its audacity, but it perfectly shows the state's absolute power over traditional money.
Just an unimaginable level of financial repression. So with their traditional funds basically wiped out, how did the Anti-Corruption Foundation keep going? How did they pay staff?
That's exactly where Bitcoin became their lifeline. Despite being officially banned in Russia, despite having their bank accounts totally shut down, the foundation kept working. They received donations, and they even paid their staff exclusively via Bitcoin. Exclusively. Because Bitcoin is permissionless and censorship-resistant, the Russian regime just couldn't stop those transactions. They opened Bitcoin wallets, they self-custodied their funds, held their own keys, and they continued their vital work exposing corruption, completely bypassing the state's financial controls. It's just such a powerful testament to Bitcoin's ability to circumvent that kind of tyranny. In fact, we heard about a Russian journalist who got detained just for donating something like $16 to the foundation.
$16.
Yeah, that's the level of scrutiny they face. It made Bitcoin absolutely indispensable for them.
Truly remarkable. It really underscores the difference an open, permissionless system makes when, freedom itself is on the line. Okay, now let's turn to another case. The #EndSARS movement in Nigeria, another powerful example where traditional finance got weaponized against a popular movement.
Right, the #EndSARS protests in Nigeria, they started in 2021 against really egregious police brutality by this unit called SARS, and they faced an immediate severe financial crackdown. The Nigerian central bank moved super quickly to freeze the accounts of activists, their supporters, anyone raising funds for the movement. And this financial squeeze was happening just as the Nigerian government was also actively trying to eliminate physical cash and push for their own central bank digital currency, a CBDC.
Which would give them even more control, presumably.
More granular control over everyone's financial lives.
But the protesters, they found a way around this government blockade, didn't they? How did Bitcoin help sustain their efforts?
They absolutely did. It was highlighted by places like Quartz Africa, and even figures like Jack Dorsey publicly encouraged Bitcoin donations. Bitcoin became a critical tool for the movement. Despite the government trying everything to cut off their funding, the protesters managed to raise over 100 million naira, that was over $100,000 USD at the time, dozens of Bitcoin, all through decentralized donations.
Incredible. And what were those funds used for?
Vital stuff, survival, basically, and continuing the protest. Urgent medical aid for injured protesters, legal aid for those arrested, relief for victims of police brutality, setting up memorials for those killed, even mental health support for traumatized participants. Bitcoin made sure that aid got to the people who desperately needed it, completely bypassing government interference.
That's just an incredibly inspiring example. A decentralized system empowering a grassroots movement against, overwhelming state power. And finally, let's look at Myanmar. You described this as a truly chilling example of state control.
Yeah, Myanmar really illustrates the severity of financial repression in just the most vivid, brutal terms. The military junta there, trying to suppress dissent after the coup, they just closed down 700 mobile banking accounts belonging to activists. Poof, gone.
Oh, no.
And the consequences for citizens are horrific. People faced incredibly long prison sentences for tiny donations to opposition groups. We're talking like an $8 donation resulting in years in prison, or even less than $3 leading to 7 years.
7 years for less than $3.
Right.
That's a level of control that's genuinely hard to comprehend from here. It sounds dystopian.
It really is, precisely. But here again, Bitcoin provides this crucial lifeline. Dissidents inside Myanmar are actively using Bitcoin to raise funds internationally, funds the government cannot stop or seize. They then send these funds to protesters, to resistance fighters across the country. People use it for essential living expenses, food, rent, and critical legal support. It completely circumvents the military junta's ironclad controls, as Alex Lee put it so powerfully, summarizing Bitcoin's protective power. It's about preventing Xi Jinping from micromanaging you, Putin from freezing your assets, the Myanmar military from deleting you, or Chavismo from hyperinflating your assets. That's the profound difference it makes to real lives.
It's so clear that the Human Rights Foundation is really on the front lines here, using tech to champion human rights. They have other amazing programs too, right? I remember hearing about their flash drives for freedom into North Korea.
Yeah, the HRF does some incredibly innovative and impactful work. Flash Drives for Freedom is a fantastic example. They basically send free media, K-dramas, Bibles, Wikipedia, you name it, on USB flash drives into North Korea via balloons, boats. The aim is to expose North Koreans to outside information, foster independent thought. Since 2016, they've distributed over 140,000 of those drives.
Wow.
But yes, specifically on Bitcoin, they launched the HRF Bitcoin Development Fund back in June 2020. And since then, they've granted over $8.5 million to more than 280 projects in 62 countries. Their mission is crystal clear. They believe Bitcoin is the single best tool we have to preserve financial privacy and freedom in our increasingly digital world.
And one of their crucial tools for raising awareness about the other side of digital currency is the HRF CBDC tracker. It highlights this really important counter-narrative, right? Even for us in established democracies like South Korea, shows how financial control can creep in.
It's a vital resource, seriously. I encourage everyone listening to check it out. The CBDC tracker reveals that while lots of nations, South Korea included, are actively researching and developing central bank digital currencies, there's a huge, often sort of unspoken trade-off involved. The Bank of Korea governor, for instance, openly admitted that while they thought about anonymity for small transactions, they found it, quote, almost impossible to implement features like freezing accounts via court order while also maintaining high user privacy. So their basic choice was enhance regulatory compliance at the sacrifice of privacy.
Which is just fundamentally different from Bitcoin's whole design philosophy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Polar opposites, really. If you want to understand CBDCs, just think of them as the opposite of Bitcoin in almost every important way. Bitcoin, limited, fixed supply, 21 million coins, that's it. Strong foundation for privacy, plus tools to enhance it. CBDCs, basically unlimited supply. Governments can always print more fiat, digitally or otherwise. And crucially, with the CBDC, there is effectively no privacy. Every single transaction you make would be inherently monitored, surveilled, potentially controlled by the government or central bank.
That's a chilling prospect. And, for many of us living in democracies, it might feel like a distant worry. We might think, why should I care if my government knows what I buy? I trust them.
Yeah.
But what's the long-term risk there, even if you trust your current government?
That is precisely the long-term risk the HRF is sounding the alarm about. Even if you totally trust your government today, you have to think about how a future government, maybe one with very different ideas, how might they choose to weaponize a CBDC against their own citizens? We've seen how quickly political landscapes can change. That level of centralized financial control, no matter how well-intentioned it seems at first, offers an almost irresistible temptation for authoritarian tendencies down the line. It's why the HRF is so passionate about fighting this potential future. Through Bitcoin education, supporting open-source Bitcoin developers, boosting the whole ecosystem, they're committed to making sure financial freedom stays a fundamental human right everywhere, no matter how politics shift.
So reflecting back on that session from Bitcoin Soul and this whole deep dive, what does it really mean for you, the listener? This conversation, I think, has truly shown us the profound, real-world impact of Bitcoin way beyond just the financial news. It shows how it serves not just as, an investment maybe, but as a crucial tool for actual survival and freedom for billions.
Yeah, for me, connecting these dots so clearly, especially after revisiting the points from the conference, it just underscores that knowledge is most valuable when you understand it and see how it applies to real-world problems. This isn't just about some fancy new technology. It's fundamentally about human rights, about preserving individual liberty, about dignity in this increasingly digital and often very centralized world we're building. The contrast between that centralized control and the potential for decentralized liberation, it's never felt clearer to me.
Absolutely, and I'm left personally with just the sheer power of an open, permissionless system, how it can truly change lives and empower people, often when they're facing incredible adversity. It really highlights that joy of discovery, how these topics that seem complex, like decentralized digital currency, how they can have such direct, vital relevance to basic human dignity and freedom. It's great to be reminded of that at Bitcoin Soul and to unpack it further now. So here's a final thought for you to consider. In an increasingly digital world, where does your financial freedom truly reside? And, maybe more importantly, what proactive steps can you take to protect it?